She's always too emotional to matter. That's the first sentence I ever remember hearing about myself. I must have been 8, maybe 9. I was crouched behind the hallway door, knees pressed to the linoleum, pretending I'd dropped something so I could eavesdrop better. The adults thought I was asleep, but I knew better than to sleep early when family came over, especially the important ones. That's when the real talk happened. The unfiltered kind. The kind that didn't pause for children. I can still hear the tinkle of china cups, the distant thump of football on the TV, and the dry, clinical voice of my Aunt Ruth, always the first to say what everyone else only dared to think. She's too sensitive. She cries when someone raises their voice. That one's not going to amount to much. Not like Ethan. Now that boy, he's cut from a different cloth. My mother didn't correct her. She just laughed and poured more tea. That laugh would follow me for years like a shadow. That sound of passive approval. That confirmation that I was, at best, tolerated. My name is Lila Grant. I'm 41 now. And if you're wondering how someone with a useless degree in foreign languages, no family support, and an uncanny ability to cry at commercials ends up being thanked by the president on national television, well, sit down. Because I'm not the kind of woman who makes noise. I'm the one who watches. The one who stays behind to translate the terms of surrender. The one whose name is never on the front page, but whose silence, if broken, could level a room. Before we go further, I want to ask something of you. Not as a performer or a content creator, but as someone who lived this. Have you ever been made to feel like your quiet was your weakness? That because you didn't fight to be heard, you must have nothing to say? If yes, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, drop a like, and let me know in the comments. Where are you listening from? And what time is it for you? You're not alone. And maybe, after this story, you'll see just how powerful your silence has been all along. Now, let's listen to my story journey. It always starts with Ethan, my older brother, the chosen one. His room was filled with trophies, plaques, medals, certificates, each one framed and dusted weekly like they were relics from a shrine. His grades were pristine, his back was straight. He looked people in the eye when he spoke and always said sir and ma'am. I, on the other hand, had a journal and a stack of library cards. I liked maps, old dialects, coded stories from ancient wars. I would listen to the wind outside and imagine what the trees were whispering in other languages. I never fit the mold. Not the one my father, a retired Air Force colonel, respected. Not the one my mother, once a pageant queen, now a perfectionist homemaker, demanded. You read too much, my father once grunted when I tried to explain why learning Arabic was beautiful. Reading won't teach you how to stand your ground. I had so many responses in my head, but none left my lips. I just nodded and shrank a little smaller. School was my only sanctuary. I kept my head down, turned in perfect essays and sat in the front row, but never raised my hand. I got into the habit of becoming invisible, not because I wanted to be, but because being seen had consequences. Ethan, of course, thrived. He enlisted straight after high school, went to West Point, and became the physical embodiment of everything our family considered successful. Honor, discipline, masculine presence. He came home on holidays in uniform. My mother would cry from pride. My father would stand a little taller. When I was accepted into Georgetown with a full scholarship to study international relations and linguistics, my mother looked at the letter and asked, "So, what does that mean you'll do?" I told her I wanted to work in diplomacy, conflict resolution, maybe even translate for peace talks one day. She blinked slowly. "Do they pay you for that?" I remember laughing, not out of humor, but defense. "Yeah, they do." She handed the letter back. "As long as you don't expect us to pay for anything, then do what you want." We'll be busy helping Ethan with his move to base. I should have known better than to expect a hug, but I kept going, because somewhere inside, I believed I could build something different. That maybe, just maybe, my quiet love for truth, language, and empathy would find its place in the world. Back then, I didn't need applause. I just needed a chair at the table. But as I packed my bags that summer, I realized there was never going to be a chair for me. If I wanted a place in the room, I'd have to carve it out myself. And so I did. Georgetown feels like a cathedral compared to where I grew up. Every corridor smells like ambition and old paper. The students walk fast, talk fast, dress like they already have appointments with senators. I walk slower. I still second-guess every sentence before I speak it. But for the first time in my life, no one here calls me too sensitive. They just ask me where I learned Farsi and how I got my accent so clean. It feels good, until I go back home. Ethan is already a lieutenant by then. Bronze star, clean jawline, a tan like he earned it with blood and sweat. My father has a framed photo of him in uniform above the fireplace. My mother made custom cookies with little edible army logos on them for his welcome party. I arrive with a bag of small gifts from DC, handmade tea, a pen from the embassy bookstore, a scarf with Arabic script. No one opens them. They sit on the entryway table all night. At dinner, someone jokes that I'll probably marry a foreign diplomat and forget English. My father snorts. Ethan just laughs and says, "She'll marry a thesaurus." The whole table roars. I laugh too hard, like it doesn't hurt, like I'm in on the joke. That's always the trick. If you don't laugh, you look bitter. If you do, you become the punchline. I excuse myself halfway through the meal. The mashed potatoes taste like sand. Senior year at Georgetown, I'm selected for a special immersion program, State Department shadowing in Kabul. It's high risk, high stakes, and no one in my family even asks me what it's about. When I tell them I've been accepted, my mother pauses for a full 5 seconds before saying, "Is that safe for women?" My father says, "Ethan's been to Kabul. He didn't make a big deal about it." I say nothing. On the flight over, I watch the clouds part like open curtains, and I wonder, what does it take to be seen as enough? I meet Rafiq on my second week there. He's an interpreter. Kind eyes, speaks 6 languages, and carries a quiet trauma like it's stitched into his collar. He teaches me how to listen without hearing. That in diplomacy, what's not said is often more important. I keep notes in a leather-bound journal. Every phrase, every shift in tone. It becomes my second brain. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just trying to translate my own life. Back home, Ethan gets promoted again. There's a local news piece. My mother emails me the link and says, "In case you didn't see." I write back, "Congrats to him." She doesn't reply. One day, I'm in a village north of Kandahar, helping coordinate a ceasefire dialogue. We've been working for 3 weeks with tribal elders. The moment is delicate, precise, and urgent. I'm the only woman in the room, the only American under 30. And I nail it. Every word, every nuance. The elders agree to meet again, no weapons. The American major present, stone-faced and skeptical the whole time, pulls me aside after and says, "You're a damn good translator, but you missed your calling. You should be sitting at the table, not beside it." I don't tell my family. I just write it down and underline it 3 times in red. 2 years later, I'm working out of Eastern Europe on assignment involving a diplomatic loophole that could prevent a military escalation. My role is unofficial, of course, like most of my work. I'm not on the record. But I carry messages between rival consuls, smoothing language that might be mistaken for threats. I learn how to carry tension in my spine and keep my face still. I learn to nod without agreeing, smile without promising, disagree without raising my voice. I learn, above all, how to remain invisible even while holding the match that might stop a war. And for all this, silence from home. No calls, no holiday cards, no, "How are you?" Not even from Ethan. Once, I email my father a picture of me with a small delegation. Nothing sensitive, just a rare, candid smile where I'm clearly respected. He forwards it with no message to my mother. That's how I know he saw it. A week later, Ethan's promoted again. Lieutenant Colonel. His Facebook is flooded with congratulations. One comment from my mother reads, "Our pride and joy." It sits there like a bullet in my chest. I stop sending photos. I stop reaching out. Instead, I start burning the letters I wrote them but never sent. They pile up fast. Ink-stained confessions about fear, about loneliness, about the time a child gave me a broken pencil as thanks for stopping a raid, about the time I watched a woman bury her translator husband and knew that could have been me. None of those stories ever made it home, because home never asked. One night in a small hotel room with thin walls and a leaky faucet, I burn a letter where I wrote, "Maybe you were right. I am too emotional." The fire hisses louder than my tears. My graduation from Georgetown comes and goes without ceremony. Technically, I graduate with distinction. Top 2% of my program, recommendation letters from 3 State Department advisors, and an informal job offer to return as a field liaison for a sensitive program overseas. The kind of thing that's whispered at first, then folded into a non-disclosure agreement. But when I call home to share the news, I get voicemail. I leave a message anyway, carefully cheerful. 2 weeks later, I get a Hallmark card in the mail, generic, unsigned. Inside is a sticky note from my mother. "Your father and I have already committed to Ethan's deployment ceremony in Fort Carson. Congratulations, I guess. Be careful overseas." That's it. No, "We're proud of you." No visit, no flowers, not even a $10 bill slipped in for luck. I sit with the card in my lap and stare at the kitchen wall of my tiny apartment until the sun goes down. I don't cry. I just feel removed. Like I've finally exited the family narrative, like they've closed the book. And I'm not in the epilogue. I attend the university ceremony alone. I wear a navy dress and a soft gray scarf. I smile at the right moments. A classmate's mother insists I join their group photo so I don't look so alone. I thank her politely and step away after the picture is taken. I spend the evening folding up my cap and gown in silence, placing it beside the journal I've carried for years, the one full of translations and people no one back home would ever ask about. A year into my postgraduate work, I'm stationed in Tunisia, assisting with negotiation prep between rival civil groups. My work is subtle: editing drafts, coaching phrases, training local representatives in American diplomacy methods. Nothing glamorous, but it matters. I begin to build a reputation. Quiet, effective, trustworthy, especially under pressure. And yet, my name never makes it onto public documents. It's always someone else's signature on the bottom. That's the price of being behind the scenes. One day, an envoy I've assisted for weeks gives a televised statement. He's praised for his surprising clarity and empathy. He nods and smiles, then looks straight at the camera and says, "I'd like to thank the American representative who helped me find the right words." She knows who she is? My chest tightens. It's the first time anyone has acknowledged me publicly. I want to call home, just once, just to say, "Did you see that?" But I don't, because I already know the answer. Meanwhile, Ethan continues to ascend. He's now stationed in Germany, something about a joint NATO operation. He posts photos in dress uniform beside generals, flags, tanks. There are smiles, toasts, recognition. I watch one video where he gives a speech about honor and loyalty, peppered with words like duty, discipline, and sacrifice. It's all very polished. The kind of speech that sounds brave and righteous, unless you've seen what quiet, negotiated peace really costs. Still, the comments from family are glowing. My father posts, "This is the kind of man we raised." I close the laptop without reading the rest. My mother calls one night, out of nowhere. I answer before I have time to think. Her voice is clipped, urgent. "Are you okay?" I freeze. "I'm fine. Why?" "There's a bombing in Cairo on the news. They said foreign staff might have been hit." I thought. She pauses, breathes. I hear my own heartbeat. I tell her I'm safe. I'm not even in Egypt. I'm in Jordan, prepping for a conference. I try to lighten the moment. "That's sweet, though. You called." There's a silence. Then she says, "Well, your father said I should." Ah, there it is. She doesn't ask what I'm working on, doesn't ask how I've been. She says she hopes I'm not doing anything too political because those things always come back to bite you. I stare at the wall again. Later, I sit by my window and watch the city lights flicker. I realize something strange. I no longer long for their approval. I just want the absence to make sense. I want the math to add up. But it never does. A few months later, I return to Washington for a closed-door meeting. I'm one of 2 women in a room of 12 men, all higher-ranking. We're reviewing details of a Middle Eastern contract that's gone sideways. The issue? A private U.S. contractor is being accused of funneling aid money into illegal surveillance operations. I point out, calmly, that I heard whispers about this a year ago in Kabul, but no one followed up. The room goes quiet. One man, a director whose handshake still smells like entitlement, leans forward and says, "Are you suggesting we overlooked a security breach?" I reply, "I'm saying we ignored the wrong whispers." He doesn't smile. No one does. That meeting ends with a quiet warning from my mentor. "Next time, let the politics finish their dance before you call out the wrong partner." I leave with my stomach in knots. At home, I get an email from Ethan. 3 words. "What did you do?" I don't respond. Because the answer would be too complicated, and because I'm already bracing for the storm. The email from Ethan hangs in my inbox like a loaded weapon. I read it again and again. What did you do? No greeting, no context, just an accusation dressed up as curiosity. A week later, I'm pulled from my assignment in Jordan and summoned back to Washington. It's subtle at first, phrased like a strategic debriefing, but the energy is off. I can feel it in the silence between phone calls, in the way people I once collaborated with avoid eye contact in the hallway. Something is shifting beneath my feet. And I know the pattern. It's the same feeling I had when I was 8, listening behind the door. The meeting is held in a small, windowless room deep inside a government building whose name I'm not allowed to say out loud. The walls are painted in colors designed to feel neutral, safe. But everything inside hums with tension. There are 3 men and 1 woman. None of them smile when I enter. One of them slides a thick folder across the table. "We're investigating a potential leak. Your names come up." I blink once, slowly. A leak of what? Classified field intelligence, relayed to unauthorized foreign individuals during your work in Kabul. My heart doesn't stop. It hardens. "You're saying I committed espionage?" "No one's used that word," the woman says smoothly, but her eyes stay fixed. "We're just asking questions. For now." I take the folder, skim through. It's vague, carefully worded. There are photos of me in meetings, screenshots of emails, all redacted except for my name and timestamps. Someone has been building a case for months, and they're good at it. Too good. That night, I sit in a hotel room that smells like carpet glue and old regret. I stare at the ceiling and think, they want a scapegoat. And I'm quiet enough to carry it. I try to call my old mentor, Davis, retired diplomat, one of the few people who taught me how to read between the silences. He answers on the second ring. "I figured you'd be calling," he says. "Why me?" I ask. There's a pause. Then, "Because you've seen too much. And you haven't played the game." I laugh bitterly. "I didn't even get invited to the table. That's why they're afraid of you. You don't owe anyone." We meet the next day in a bookstore that smells like cedar and ink. He slips me a flash drive disguised as a bookmark. "Start here. Look closely at the contractor reports from 3 years ago, and look at the oversight committee signatures." I don't ask how he got it. I just nod. As I dig, the pieces start falling into place. A certain American contractor, same one I flagged years ago for financial discrepancies, is not only still operating, but now quietly embedded in military infrastructure across 3 regions. And guess who's one of their key liaisons? Ethan. My own brother. His name isn't on anything directly, of course. He's not foolish. But his unit signed off on logistics contracts tied to the same shell companies I'm tracing, and the timelines overlap too perfectly to ignore. There it is. The leak they're accusing me of? It's a cover. A distraction. Someone is afraid I'll connect dots I'm not supposed to see. And they were right. I don't sleep for days. Back home, I receive a letter. Real paper. No return address. Inside is a printed statement from the Department of Defense. Official hearing for alleged breach of confidentiality. Lila Grant. Witness list includes 2 names I recognize. One is my former supervisor, the other is Ethan. I throw up in the sink. The hearing is scheduled on a Wednesday. Rain-soaked, gray-skied, and cold in the bones kind of day. I walk into the room with a stiff back and clean suit. No makeup, no accessories. Just facts. They lay out their case. I respond calmly, clearly. No panic, no emotion. But I can feel the bias floating in the air like smoke. Then Ethan walks in. He's in uniform, straight-backed, impeccable. He nods to the panel like he belongs there, then glances at me with an expression I can only describe as performative sympathy. Like he's already decided what role he's playing in this drama, and I'm just a prop. They ask him what he knows about my communications in Kabul. He says, "She kept secrets, even from me." He says, "She has a good heart, but sometimes her passion clouds her judgment." He says, "I warned her not to get involved in field-level issues beyond her clearance." Each word slices me open from the inside, not because I didn't expect it, but because he says them so gently, so convincingly, like he's trying to protect me by destroying me. My father is sitting behind him, stone-faced. My mother isn't there. I'm given 5 minutes to speak. I say only this. Sometimes silence is the loudest form of betrayal. They don't react. They just adjourn. I leave the room empty, but unbroken. Outside, the air smells of damp asphalt and gasoline. I walk for an hour. No destination. Just movement. Just breath. Just stubborn survival. I think about the tea parties when I was a child. The way everyone leaned forward when Ethan spoke. The way I learned to measure my worth in decibels I never reached. The way I believed, deep down, that if I just did enough good, they'd finally turn around and see me. They didn't. But I see me now, and I'm not done yet. The phone doesn't ring for days after the hearing. There's no formal verdict, no decision letter, just stillness. The kind that stretches across time like a taut string, vibrating with tension but never snapping. In that silence, I disappear. I go off-grid, just enough to feel unseen but not erased. I rent a cabin 3 hours from DC, nestled in the Shenandoah Hills, where the wind smells like pine and the nights are so quiet I can hear my own heart speaking. I spend days doing nothing but walking, thinking, sitting still long enough for the shame to lose its sting. Because that's the thing they never tell you about betrayal. Not the kind that comes from strangers, but from blood. It makes you question your memory, your choices, your entire emotional architecture. You wonder, did I imagine it? Am I really the villain they said I was? And worse, what if I'm not even worth defending? But the woods don't lie to me. The woods are honest. And one night, while flipping through the pages of my old leather-bound journal, I find a small folded square tucked deep inside the back pocket. A note, written in the slanted, hurried hand of a man who always believed in facts more than feelings. Davis. If they come for you, it means they know you're dangerous. If you're dangerous, it means you're close to the truth. If you're close to the truth, don't stop. Finish the story. I trace each line with my thumb over and over until the ink blurs in the candlelight. That's when I decide I won't clear my name. I'll redefine it. I go back through every encrypted message, every blurred contract, every sidestepped conversation I've ever had with field officers who were afraid to speak on record. And slowly, a map begins to take shape, one that spans continents, budgets, careers. At the center, a network of contractors, private firms, and military liaisons quietly redirecting billions in aid money toward covert surveillance projects masked as humanitarian support. Some of it's sanctioned, but most of it, hidden. And Ethan's name may not be on the front page, but his fingerprints are all over the approval chains, the command structure, the shell companies. At first, I can't breathe. Then, I can't sleep. Finally, I can't stop. I reach out to an old contact from Tunisia. Her name is Ada. She's now working in Brussels with an oversight NGO. She remembers me, trusts me, and when I share what I've found, carefully, selectively, her voice goes low. You know this won't just get you fired. I'm already gone. She exhales. I'll protect your name. But if this becomes public, I don't want it to be public, I say. I want it to be undeniable. We build a file, together, layered with proof, cross-referenced with open data and leaked testimonies from a few brave souls who still believe integrity isn't dead. And then, out of nowhere, an unexpected message. Encrypted, anonymous server, a single sentence. I know what your brother did. I'm ready to talk. The sender signs with the initials, RJ. At first, I think it's a trap. But the more we talk, the more it's clear. This is someone deep on the inside. Someone who knows the numbers, the deals, the burn trails. RJ sends me a document that leaves my hands shaking. An internal memo from a top military procurement officer praising Ethan's adaptive use of funds in non-traditional zones. Translation: he knew, and he let it happen. The story is bigger than me now. Bigger than a ruined hearing or a mother's silence. It's a question of truth and legacy. I fly back to DC quietly. No notice. No announcement. Just a backpack and 3 printed folders tucked between novels and snacks. Ida meets me in a basement cafe, her scarf pulled high. She doesn't speak for the first 5 minutes. Then, "Do you want credit for this?" I shake my head. "I just want it to end." She nods once, slowly. Then we go to the press, not the mainstream. Independent, investigative, clean hands. And that's how it starts. The article drops a week later. It doesn't name me, but the facts are damning. The report details a years-long operation using military aid pipelines to fund surveillance and asset control initiatives in unstable zones. Civilian lives compromised, budgets falsified, chain of command manipulated. 3 contractor firms are named. 2 oversight officers resign within 24 hours, and a senior military liaison listed only as EG is placed under internal review. The internet explodes, but my phone stays quiet. Then one night I get a text from my mother. "You've destroyed us." "No, how are you?" "No, is it true?" Just that. And somehow, it breaks me more than the hearing ever did, because in that sentence I finally see the truth. They never saw me, only what I cost them. 3 days after the article goes viral, I receive a formal notice from the Department of Defense. Not a thank you, not an apology, a letter of non-reinstatement. It reads like a legal shrug. While no criminal wrongdoing has been found, your previous conduct has been deemed incompatible with departmental cohesion. Your clearance will not be renewed. In other words, you were right. And that's why you're out. I sit on the floor of my apartment, cross-legged like a child, the letter in one hand and my old journal in the other. I want to cry, but the tears won't come. Not because I'm numb, but because this is the first time I feel completely aligned with myself. I told the truth. I did not run. And I didn't ask anyone for permission. Ethan, on the other hand, has gone silent. His social media pages vanish. His name disappears from military newsletters. A quiet removal. Not scandal. Not noise. Just gone. The machine protects its own, but only the ones still useful. 2 weeks later, the final hearing takes place. This one's private. No press. Just a small circle of agency reps, legal advisors, and interested third parties. They've asked me to attend, not as a defendant, but as a person of interest in the ongoing security review. I sit in the back row. No badge, no nameplate, just presence. Ethan walks in 20 minutes late. He's not in uniform. For the first time in my life, he looks uncertain. His hair is disheveled. His voice cracks as he answers basic questions. He no longer owns the room. He's a man unraveling in real time. When they ask about the financial sign-offs, he says, "I trusted the system." When they push harder, he looks around, just once, and his eyes lock on mine. I don't look away. He flinches. Later, during a short recess, he walks up to me. Not close, just close enough to be heard. He says, "I never meant for it to get this far." I stare at him. "But you let it?" He doesn't respond. He just nods, once, and walks away. I watch his back shrink into the hallway, and I feel nothing. Not anger, not triumph. Just stillness. Like a clock finally stopping after ticking in the wrong direction for too long. That night, I return to my apartment and pack every journal into a box. Not to throw away, not to burn, to archive, because this chapter is over. And I'm finally ready to live a life that doesn't revolve around being seen by people who were never looking. The next few weeks are quiet. I disconnect from my old life almost entirely. No news alerts, no professional networks. I even change my number. Instead, I volunteer at a nonprofit that trains young women in international mediation. I help them translate their own stories. Languages, yes, but also grief, rage, longing. I teach them how to remain soft without being small, how to fight without becoming hardened. One of them asks me once, "Why aren't you out there anymore? Why aren't you leading peace talks?" I smile. I've made peace with myself. That's more than I ever had growing up. Then, one day in April, a letter arrives by courier. Heavy cardstock, embossed seal, Office of the President. My first thought is scam. My second is mistake. But it's real. A formal invitation to attend the National Unity Address. Front row seating by name. No explanation. No reason. Just presence. I sit with it for hours. Then I buy the train ticket. The Capitol is colder than I remember. Sharp marble and stern faces. but something about walking through the gates with my name on a guest list feels surreal. Inside, I'm ushered past polished shoes and expensive perfume, past security and strategy and posturing, to a seat, front row, third from center. I sit. I breathe. I wait. The chamber fills. Cameras blink. Hands shuffle. Whispers ripple. Then the president walks in. Applause erupts. He begins to speak. Standard things, noble things. Rebuilding trust, national honor, sacrifice. But then, he pauses, looks down at his notes, then up. There are many names we remember tonight, he says, and many more we forget. But sometimes, history is shaped by those who never asked to be remembered, only to be heard. The room stills. The president looks in my direction. Directly. Unmistakably. There is a woman here tonight, he says, who risked not only her career, but her family, her safety, and her peace of mind to protect the integrity of this country. She was not thanked. She was not praised. But tonight, she is seen. He says my name. Out loud. In that moment, I do not feel proud. I feel whole. I stand. Not because I'm asked to, but because I deserve to. The room rises with me, flashbulbs, gasps, even a tear or two from people who have no idea what I've been through. I stand until my legs shake. Then I sit. And for the first time in my life, I am not invisible. After the speech, I don't linger. People come up to me, some press, some political aides, a few agency faces I vaguely recognize. Their hands reach out, their voices suddenly warm. Thank you for your service. You're a patriot. Such courage, Ms. Grant. But I don't feel like a patriot. I feel like a person who crawled through fire without asking for a medal. So I nod, thank them, and slip out a side entrance before the cameras catch too much. The wind outside bites through my coat, but it feels refreshing, like I just walked out of someone else's dream and back into my own skin. A black car waits. Not requested, no license plate, just a driver in a dark suit who says, "Ma'am, you're expected." I hesitate. Expected by who? Director Davis, he says. That name brings me still. We drive in silence for 20 minutes through narrow DC alleys and empty boulevards until we stop behind a nondescript brick building. Inside, Davis is waiting, older now, slower in posture, but with the same laser-sharp eyes. He motions me to sit across from him at a long oak table covered in declassified files. No one claps for the ones who put out the fire before it spreads, he says without preamble. But sometimes, you get lucky. I don't feel lucky, I reply. He smiles. That's how I know you still belong in this work. He opens a manila folder. Inside are printouts from an internal investigation, names, timelines, confirmed resignations, and at the bottom, a list of recommendations for new international policy consultants. My name is on it. You're on the short list, he says. I didn't ask to come back. No, but you didn't stay gone either. I run my fingers over the paper, not with pride, more like recognition, like looking into a mirror and finally seeing my own reflection, not the version my family made for me. That night, I walk the city alone. Cherry blossoms are just starting to bloom. Their scent mixes with the damp smell of stone and traffic. I pass people in evening gowns, joggers with headphones, diplomats laughing in another language. No one knows who I am, and for the first time, that feels like freedom. Not erasure, not invisibility. Freedom. I reach the reflecting pool and stand at its edge. The water is still. My face shimmers on its surface, older now, but stronger, like something forged, not just grown. I think about calling my mother, about saying, "Did you watch the speech?" But then I remember her last message. "You've destroyed us." I let the thought fade. Weeks pass, and then, A package arrives at my apartment. No return label, just a brown box, sealed carefully. Inside, a stack of old letters. My letters, the ones I sent home for years. Some unopened, some torn, all returned. And at the bottom, a note. We found these in the attic after Dad passed. Ethan said you might want them. I don't know what any of them mean. Mom. No, I'm sorry. No, I understand now. Just distance, still. But I sit on the floor and read every single letter I wrote. Each one is a breadcrumb. Each one is a version of me, trying to prove I was worth loving. By the 5th letter, I'm crying. By the 10th, I'm laughing. By the end, I realize I've been writing my own story all along. They just never opened it. And that's okay. Later that spring, I accept a consultancy offer, not with the government, but with a grassroots diplomacy initiative in South America. Not glamorous, not televised, but necessary. I pack light. Just my scarf, a few books, and one leather journal. Before I leave, I mail one final envelope to my mother. Inside is a single page. It reads, "I was never trying to destroy you. I was trying to survive you." No return address, no explanation, just truth. The kind I no longer need permission to speak. In the airport, as the gate agent calls final boarding, I sit for one last moment and scroll through a photo Ada sent me. A classroom of girls in Tunisia, holding signs that say, "Speak up, even if your voice shakes." One of them holds a copy of a news article with the headline, "The Quiet Hero Behind the Contractor Scandal." My face isn't pictured, but that's the point. Because now the story doesn't need me to tell it. It speaks for itself. The work in Colombia is quiet, messy, and deeply human. We're not solving wars here. We're unraveling decades of mistrust, teaching farmers how to negotiate without a gun at the table, translating ceasefire agreements into something real enough to be felt, not just signed. Some days we sit in humid schoolhouses with plastic chairs and no electricity, arguing over commas in a peace clause. Other days, I sip black coffee with former guerrilla fighters who now run microfarms and want their children to attend school without the fear of abduction. And not one person here cares where I went to school or that the president once said my name. They care that I listen, that I show up, that I don't flinch when the stories get ugly. In one village, I meet a boy named Thomas. He's 12, has a stutter, and knows more about the terrain than any GPS system. I teach him how to say resolution in English. He teaches me how to listen with my whole body. One day, I watch him settle an argument between two angry men over landlines, using nothing but a paper map and his hands. I catch his eye as the men walk away, shaking hands. He shrugs. "I remembered what you said. That some voices are small but still carry weight." I nod. That's exactly right. And in that moment, I feel something click into place inside me. Something I thought had died in Washington. Belonging. But on my own terms. Months pass like water. Soft. Fast. Necessary. Then, in late August, I receive an email from Ada with a headline attached. "Former military liaison testifies in closed session. Corruption confirmed in aid oversight." She writes only this: "You never needed revenge. You just needed the truth to keep walking." I close the laptop and smile. I don't respond. Some silences are finally mine to keep. The rainy season begins, and with it, the long nights where stories drift like smoke between porch rails and half-lit courtyards. I sit with a woman named Paloma, once a rebel informant, now a literacy teacher. She speaks slowly, with the weight of someone who's lost many lives inside a single one. She tells me how her brother turned her in when she tried to leave the camp, how she forgave him, not because he deserved it, but because carrying his betrayal was too heavy. I ask her how she did it. She says, I stopped confusing his silence for my worth. It hits me like a stone in the chest. I walk back to my quarters that night and write her words in my journal in bold letters, because that's what I've done for years. Confused their silence for a lack of value, for proof that I didn't matter. But I was never the problem. They were just too busy praising the sun to notice the light in a matchstick. One night, a journalist from Bogota tracks me down through Ada. She wants to write a follow-up story. Where is she now? Kind of thing. Human interest, inspiration. She asks if I'll go on record this time. I say no. She seems surprised. You could reclaim your name. But I'm not trying to reclaim anything anymore. I'm trying to build what I never had. A life not rooted in proving anything. A legacy made of presence, not performance. Still, the article runs. No name, just a silhouette and a quote. I don't need applause. I just needed to know I wasn't wrong. It circulates online in quiet circles. Students, diplomats, aid workers. One comment sticks out to me. This is for every woman who was told she was too emotional to matter. And there it is. My story has become more than just mine. It's a mirror now. A map for anyone who's been gaslit by their own blood, betrayed by the very people they fought to protect, and told their empathy was a liability. Back at the village, Thomas brings me a handmade envelope one morning. Inside is a note, written in wobbly English. You help the world speak, even when you are quiet. It's folded around a dried flower. I tuck it into my journal beside Davis's old note, and I realize I no longer need the president's words to feel seen, because I've built a room of my own, one where I don't have to knock, one where my voice, however soft, has weight. When I return to the US a year later, no one is waiting at the airport. And that feels right. Not sad, not empty, just accurate. I take a taxi to a small apartment I've rented near a quiet coastal town in Rhode Island. It smells like salt and old wood. The walls are bare, the furniture secondhand. But the windows open wide and the ocean's right there, humming against the edge of the earth like it's always known me. I unpack slowly. No medals, no souvenirs, just books, journals, and one folded scarf. I pin Thomas's note to the fridge with a tiny magnet shaped like a globe. Then I make tea and sit on the porch as the wind sweeps through the dunes like an old friend. I think of all the places I've left myself behind. Kabul, Tunisia, Georgetown, D.C. And then I realize I haven't left anything behind at all. I've just grown too big to fit in the places they wanted to keep me small. One afternoon, I get a call from Ada. She's breathless with excitement. They're starting a program, scholarships for young women entering diplomacy from underrepresented communities. They want you to name it. I freeze. Me? They're calling it the Lila Grant Fellowship, with your permission. Your story inspired the founder's daughter. I don't respond at first. I'm too busy holding my breath. Because there it is. Not legacy as loudness, but legacy as echo. Yes, I say softly, but only if the first line of every application says this. Tell us about a time you told the truth, and no one believed you. She laughs. Done. And just like that, I exist in the lives of strangers I'll never meet. Not as a headline. As a door. One day, while walking the beach, I see a familiar face in the distance. At first, I think I'm imagining it. But as he draws closer, I recognize the posture, the stride, the way the wind never quite seems to touch him. Ethan. He doesn't wear a uniform anymore. Just jeans, a gray jacket. A face full of years he didn't earn the honest way. He stops a few paces away. I don't say anything. He doesn't either. Finally, he holds out a letter. No envelope. I read them, he says. I glance down. It's one of the letters I sent home, the one I wrote after a field child was killed in crossfire. It's stained at the edges like it traveled far to find light again. I take it. Slowly. He says, "You were braver than I ever knew." I nod. "You had every chance to know it." He looks away. "I thought loyalty meant silence, and I thought family meant protection." We stand in that broken space between definitions. He clears his throat. "I'm trying to be better." Shh. I nod again, but not for him. For me. Because I don't need him to change anymore. I just need him to stay out of the way while I do. He starts to turn, but then pauses. "The president really said your name on TV?" I shrug. "Does it matter?" He watches me for a moment, then he walks away, and I let him. No ache, no longing, just peace. Back at home, I sit at my desk and start a letter. Not to anyone, just to the past version of me who stayed quiet for so long. You weren't wrong, you weren't weak. You were waiting for the day the world caught up to your worth. You were never meant to scream. You were meant to speak. And shake the room anyway. I seal the letter and tuck it in the back of my journal. One day, maybe I'll read it aloud, or maybe I won't need to. Because for the first time, my story speaks even when I don't. I wake early now. Not from fear, not from urgency, just the rhythm of a quieter life. I brew my tea in silence and carry it to the window where the ocean greets me like it always has, untouched by my triumphs, unbothered by my grief. The morning fog rolls in thick and slow, blanketing the town below. It reminds me of the spaces I used to move through, cloaked, hidden, necessary. But now, I let the light in. Every window wide open, every journal page turned without shame. I teach 2 mornings a week at the local university, introductory diplomacy and a seminar called Language of the Unheard. My students are sharp, curious, and gloriously unpolished. They ask questions no one would have dared ask when I was their age. One of them lingers after class one day, a young woman with dark eyes and a stubborn chin. She waits until everyone leaves, then says, "Why didn't you quit?" I think for a moment. Then answer, "Because I was raised in a house that mistook silence for weakness. I stayed to prove them wrong, then I left to prove myself right." She doesn't say anything at first. Then she whispers, "They say I'm too sensitive to last in this field." I smile. "They used to say the same thing to me." Her shoulders relax. She walks out taller, and I write her name down to remember. That night, I sit at my desk by the window. The breeze slips through the screen, carrying the scent of salt and honeysuckle. I open my email and find a note from the fellowship director. "Lila, we've received over 800 applications. Many of them mention your name. They say your story made them believe in their own. Thank you." I lean back in my chair and let the silence wrap around me like silk. Because this is what legacy feels like. Not applause, not monuments, but echoes. Rippling out into lives you'll never touch directly. Lighting candles in rooms you'll never see. A week later, I receive another letter. This time from a journalist writing a book on unnamed whistleblowers who shaped national policy. She's tracked down details, timelines, even the sealed transcript of my hearing. She writes, "Your silence said more than your words ever could. I'd like to give you the last chapter." I stare at the message, and I realize I don't need the last chapter. I already wrote it. Every time I told the truth when no one was listening. Every time I stood in a room without applause and did the right thing anyway. Every time I refused to become what they tried to reduce me to. Still, I reply, only if the chapter ends without my name. Let it end with a girl who was told she was too emotional, and a world that finally heard her voice anyway. She agrees. One morning, months later, I'm walking past a bookstore downtown when I see a girl, 16, maybe 17, flipping through a copy of a paperback with the fellowship's name on it. She clutches it to her chest and smiles like it's more than just paper. I don't say anything. I don't need to. I just keep walking, heart full. Because this is the final gift. Not fame, not redemption, but the knowledge that in the end I didn't need them to call me worthy. I only needed to remember I was never worthless. I was just writing my value in a language they never bothered to learn. Thank you for listening to my story journey. If it meant something to you, take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is. And if you've ever been called too emotional to matter, remember, you're not alone. You're just ahead of your time.